Okay, we're back. I mean, we had a working instrument way before already. We have a working instrument now that's built in a little bit of a different way. But before we go on, again, just to really re-emphasize, this way that we did it in the beginning is completely fine. It's totally cool. There is no problem. This is not the better way, what I show here. It's a different way. It really depends on the instrument, how big you need to scale it. So if I was completely honest, if I'm doing something like this, maybe I just leave it like this. There is no reason to start thinking how to like efficiently loop through things and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of showing different ways of operation and different ways you can do it. I encourage you to look in the manual because there's an additional way that I won't be showing. It involves using a different callback for the UIs, for the controls. Instead of having a separate UI control for each, UI control callback for each control, there is a callback called onUI controls, which gets invoked whenever you move any control, and you can kind of base your instrument off of that. I'm not going to show it here. Look in the manual. This is up to you. But what I do want to show is, even in this scenario here, there are some things, a couple more things that could be, you could go even a little bit more into this like efficient territory, again, depending on what you want. I'm going to show you a trick with Kontakt, actually. So here, as you notice, we're declaring our UI IDs, and then we are by hand actually going one by one and doing get UI ID and telling, and we have to kind of write, like, let's say we have a ton, like we have a few hundred. So we, one by one, we go in, we make that extra line, we paste in the one we need, and maybe it gets confusing, and I don't know. So there's another way that you can do this, and this only works when they are when the ones that you need are declared in series, one by one. Because the way Kontakt works internally is, let's say, and I forget the exact numbers, you know, it really doesn't matter. But let's say this panel is UI ID 800. There, it starts with something. I think they start at like 700 and something. We can actually message, but whatever. And then, you know what? Actually, let's do that. Let's do that. So let's declare the slider, and then let's message and do get UI. Let's get the UI ID for the slider, and let's see what it says. And then, so that's attack, and then that's decay. That will make it clear, actually. Let's do this. So let's save, and now it's going to run through the init callback and give us these two messages. So, okay, yeah, it's, I remembered it starts with 700 and something, but not that the 32,000 before it. So it starts with, I guess, when we have the panel declared, right? So we have one more before. So it starts with 32,772. But as you notice, then it's sequential. So as you declare them, so that the attack we declared is 3, and then the 4, and then it will go sequentially. So as long as they're declared sequentially and the looping that you need to do is for them, you can use a little trick. So instead of doing this, so we can delete these. I'll show you in a second. And then, let's delete all. Here, let's copy it, or cut, let's say. Then we're left just with the declaration. We go into our loop, and then the first thing that we do before we start using these slider IDs is we say slider ID at I. Remember, I goes 0 to 4, so now it's 0. And now we say get UI ID amp attack slider. So now in the case of 0, so now it's correct, right? It's going to be the UI ID that we need, 32,773. For decay, we just need to add 1, right? So we can just do plus I. So that means that for the 0 location, I is 0, it adds nothing. Yeah, so it's going to be this. And then for the 1 location, it's going to be this. Exactly what we need. I think we can kill. Did I kill the messages? Okay, I killed the messages. Okay, amazing. So now, even that is in the loop. So we need to do the same for the labels, obviously. So once we're done with the slider shit, we go to the labels. And we do label ID, and remember, we need to start where it starts and then everything under it. So this time we start here. So we do need to know about this, and we do need to know about this, but still, I mean, it's still kind of fine. If we have a lot, it really helps us again, right? Then it's a one-liner here, just infers it instead of manually filling in all those hundreds of lines you might be having. So that's in there already. That's cool. And then the second thing I want to show is what we showed in the last video. This is correct, but it's maybe not so efficient, because what's happening now in the persistent change callback, right? What we really wanted to do was actually set these strings. The engine parameter is persistent inside the instrument, so it's kind of redundant that when we're changing a preset, we're actually changing this as well. So there's a better way to do this. So we have our function called setAllControls. What if we have a function called setAllControl labels? Then we do end function. And then we do, remember, it's all based on touched being a certain value. So we move this here. And then from inside here, we call also this. So what's happening now? And then we need to do one more thing. Well, we need to do this here. So what did we do now? Slider comes in, invokes the UI control slider. Touched is 0, right? It's doing its thing, everything that we looked at in the past. But now it's calling setAllControls. Touched equals 0. It goes in here, does whatever it needs to do with touch equaling 0 regarding the engine parameter itself. And then it says, oh, I also need to call another function. So it calls this function. Touched is still 0, and it's doing its thing. So separating these two allows us on the persistence, and then on a persistence change callback. That's the point, right? We don't want this, but we do want this. So all we need to do is set the touched, as we did before, but only invoke setting the labels. And again, maybe here it doesn't matter, right? But if you have hundreds, maybe it starts to matter. You don't need to be sending all these engine parameters and doing all this stuff. So this is a little bit more efficient as well. Let's save. Yes, seems fine. It likes our code. And then I guess the very last thing I want to show, and this is just to drive a point home, right? So we talked about these different types of ways that you can make the script, and like how they kind of involve maybe reusability a little bit, and there's differences in code readability and stuff like that. But also in this kind of way, the most extreme example that you can give is, if you really think about it now, these 4 sliders, there's no reason for them to know that they are attack, decay, sustain, or release slider, and same for the labels. It's really all the stuff that kind of pertains to that happens in the arrays, right? So the names come from the arrays, the engine parameters come from the arrays, the values come from the arrays, and these are just sort of generic UI widgets that get told what they need to be on the fly, right? So there's really, it's even unnecessary to give them these weird names, these like not weird, but like constrained names to like certain things. We can just call them, if we so want, we can just say macro. You can call it, you can start with 1 or 0. Let's start with 0 so it's easy. Let's replace every time it says this, macro 1. This is going to be macro 2. And this is going to be macro 3. Oh, well, shit. Well, okay. Let's do, yeah, sorry. So, well, but it's easy to change. So let's do every time. So macro, let's do macro slider and then macro label. So let's do macro slider. Well, that's this guy. Yeah, sorry. All right, macro slider, and then we'll have, whoa, where's the first one? So we'll have the label, and we will call it macro label 0, and then we will have macro label, you guessed it, it's gonna be 1, and then we're gonna have 2, and it's even not showing, and we're only using it once. This is actually cool. You see, it's finding one time because we're putting it into the array, and then we're just using the array. So, but whatever, macro label 3, and then we save. And then we have a completely generic thing, which basically depends on our arrays. You can just use this script. Let's say you have four knobs. Let's say we did 4, so we did 8, we did whatever. In this instance, we have 4, and these can be reused for whatever you want. All you need to basically do is change this stuff over here. So the engine parameter, the control name, and the value type, as long as it's, of course, like happening in the group, like as long as this is the same, this you can also put into parameters, right? So I can have, so everything now is 0, 0, -1. Let's make that even that explicit. So how about we declare, let's put it at the very top. Well, no, let's put it where all the stuff goes on here. So we can change it all at once. So let's say declare generic. Well, wait, declare group slot. And now we don't need to put the number 4, right? We don't need to even think about that. We already have our num controls. And we're going to need, let's first declare them all. So we need a group slot. We need, well, it's slot. That's a weird name. So how about group slot? That's enough, I think. Group slot generic. It's all based on num controls. And then here, we just do, at least in our case, it's not so complex. We can just do, so point group at touched, point slot at touched, and point generic touched. Close this so it's the same. Copy paste everywhere, and I think it should be fine. Let's see, slot touched, generic touched. Well, we need to define them, right? So in our case, it's all the same. So we can just do, we can just do it. I don't know if, it's a bit greedy, but okay, fine. Let's do group at I equals, ours is literally all the same. So it's group 0, slot is, what was it, 0? Yeah, and generic was -1. So group slot generic, we fill all this up, and then it's, yeah. Maybe it really depends. I guess if you're really making a dynamic instrument, it won't work putting it here because you're going to need to have like different stuff. So I guess you would declare, you would manually put them in, same as we put the MS and stuff like that. In our case, it just so happens that it's working for us. So let's just show that as well. And yeah, this should, yeah, so it works all the same. So I guess this is kind of everything I wanted to show, at least pertaining to this thing. In the next videos, in the next lessons, maybe we'll start expanding. Maybe we don't use the same script anymore, and we will start looking at other things in Kontakt, basically, and other builder flows, completely other different things. Amazing. See you there.